Diane, can you make sure you join the meeting for us, please?
I keep trying to, but it keeps syncing me back with Nello's request, so I'll try again.
Okay, I'm going to call our meeting to order. Call our meeting to order at 7:04. Welcome to the Sunrise School Division Board of Trustees meeting for April the 4th. We're going to have O Canada sung by École Dugald School. Please stand if you can do so. Thank you to École Dugald School. Let's see. We have our treaty acknowledgement. I'm going to ask Trustee Dent to read out our treaty acknowledgement, please.
We acknowledge the traditional land upon which Sunrise School Division resides as Treaty 1 territory. We honor our partnership with Canada's original peoples and respect the gifts of Indigenous history, culture, and language. We commit to moving forward in partnership with our communities in a spirit of collaboration and reconciliation.
Thanks, Trustee Dent. Appreciate it. Before we adopt the agenda, just to let people know is that we have 8 of our trustees here in the room, and our 9th trustee, Trustee Rowland, is calling in. We have Superintendent Timko, we have Secretary Treasurer Thiessen, Assistant Superintendent Fielberg, we have board support Stacy Bonato, and with us in the room is we have Tracy Weidman, our purchasing manager, and we have Kathy Majikowski. Did I say it right, Kath? Majowski. I knew it. There we go. Thanks. And Kathy Majowski is here. So welcome to everybody, and welcome to the people that are online. Again, as a board, we're going to continue to watch what the weather's like tonight. And if there are some things that we're not going to get to because of time, what weather's like, then we'll make a decision together as to where we are. But as of right now, we're in pretty good shape, but we're expecting some weather, of course, as we come in. So I need the adoption of the agenda, and be it resolved that the board approve the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Smith and seconded by Trustee Nicol. Any questions to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. It passed 9-0. Thank you. Chair's comments are a reminder that if you have questions and you're online, send your questions to jody.thiessen@sunrisesd.ca. Put your name and your address into the question, and we'll try to answer that question during a question period later on in the evening. We have Share a Story, and I'm going to open up the floor to share a story for people. Takers? Trustee Boytson?
First, I just want to mention and send kudos out to a very active parent advisory council in Enola. They do great things at the school, and I just want to thank them for all that they do. Secondly, Enola School previously purchased $10,000 worth of material for the construction of 4 outdoor classroom structures. The cost to actually put the structures up is $3,200 for a total of $12,800. A huge shout out and thank you to a Dave Prudhomme family for their generous donation of $3,200 for the build of one of the classrooms. Mr. Stanley was very excited to announce this at the last PAC meeting, and just want to say that donation is greatly appreciated. And I know the school is working on securing funding for the remainder of the project, so hopefully the students can enjoy it soon.
Well, that's great news. Thanks to Mr. Prudhomme, is his name? Prudhomme?
Sorry, Dave Prudhomme.
Right, thank you. Trustee Nicol?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to the grade 2 to 6 class in Whitemouth. They worked hard the last little while to, when they had the permanent assessment, 50% of the students that were in the red has now moved to the yellow and the green. So that's a good achievement in that little bit of time. And I'd also like to thank the teachers in Whitemouth that have used multidiscipline teaching, and they are combining French and music together, and they're learning music songs. Learning French songs they can sing to the class or to the whole school in the next assembly they're going to have in the next 2-3 months.
Thanks, Trustee Nicol. Anyone else? Trustee Dent?
Yeah, it came to my attention, excuse me, a couple days ago that Springfield Collegiate is trying to establish a PAC. They're meeting tonight, and so I asked if I could share this name as a contact, and it is Andrea Rushka. So if you're interested in joining the PAC, you can connect with Andrea at her email, which is horkringmom12@gmail.com. So there you go. I told her and got her permission, so all those folks in Springfield, in Oak Bank, get out there who want to be a part of the Springfield, the SCI PAC.
Thanks, Dustin. Melissa?
I'm also going to give a shout out to our parent advisory committees tonight. I know that many of our schools have had some disengagement with parent volunteers for things like parent advisory committees due to COVID restrictions over the past couple of years. I'm pleased to report that SMS has a small parent group that is meeting regularly. Their next meeting date is April 19th at 6 p.m. So if you're a parent with a student at SMS and are free on the 19th, I hope to see you there.
Thanks, Trustee Rowan. Trustee Smith?
I guess PAC's the word of the day. So my PAC was yesterday. We are doing Mom's Pantry, so anyone can order. Order number is 368191, group passcode 24664. I believe we're $400 short of getting free shipping. Couple more things. So the spring tea is set for May 11th, 1 till 4. Grade 5 grad, June 16th. They have just hired a new French immersion kindergarten teacher. Let's see, what else? Grade 5s are going to Camp Nunavik. And they got a donation of, I believe, around $2,000, and they purchased a bunch of snacks and foods for their lunch breakfast programs. So that's all.
Thank you, Alicia. Anyone else? Kath?
Thanks. I have a letter here from the University of Manitoba, who host a students teacher recognition reception. And this year we have a teacher from Springfield Collegiate, Shanoa Walker, who has been nominated by one of her students to get an award on the 2nd of May. So just a quick shout out and congratulations to Shanoa at Springfield Collegiate.
And I would be amiss to talk a little bit about ArtSpeak. So you all received an invitation from Heather and Tanya with regard to ArtSpeak. I don't know if the weather's going to let you do it, but if you want to go ahead and see high school students and see the talent some of our kids have, get out to Camp Cedarwood on Thursday night. It's at 7 o'clock. Tony Steffes has been doing a great job for the last umpteen number of years, and I've been to many, many ArtSpeak presentations, and it's just amazing to see the kids and the work that they go ahead and do, and how they come together, certainly with some very creative art presentations. So if you get a chance, it's Thursday night. I'm not sure what weather is going to be like about getting out there, but I would encourage all of you to get out there and see your kids from the 5 high schools participate. It's pretty something amazing. Are we good? Okay. So, Kath, we're going to go to our board, our presentations, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
I'll take it over from here. Thanks, guys. I'd like to share with everybody our purchasing manager, Tracy Weidman. She's been in the role for a number of years, and I think she's doing a great job trying to hold schools accountable and holding them to the policies and the budget numbers that we have to stick with. So I think from here, Tracy's put together a presentation to kind of explain what her day-to-day kind of looks like, and I'll let her take it from here.
Just before we start, has everybody met Tracy here of the trustees? Been able to know? So how about then we just Tracy, we're going to go around and introduce ourselves, because there's maybe some trustees that don't, that you don't know and that they don't know. So, you know me, I'm Paul.
I'm Robin. I represent the Gillis School.
Hi, Tracy. I don't think we've met before. I'm Dustin Dent. I'm from Ward 4, the Oakbank area.
Hi, Tracy. We know each other. We performed a song together.
Alicia Smith, Voyager. Now I want to know what song you guys sang. Sorry.
Do you want to introduce Russ? Do you know Tracy? Russ, do you know Tracy?
Not personally, no. Pardon me?
Tell her who you are and where you're from.
Okay, sorry. Russ Reed from Lac Du Bonnet. Trying to get my computer going here.
Hi, Tracy. My name's Melissa Rowan. I'm from the Oakbank area.
Okay, good. Everyone can hear me? So I've been employed with the division for 21 years, with the last 11 in my current role. The purchasing department consists of myself and the purchasing clerk, Shannon Hansel. I currently hold a certificate in supply chain management as well as the public sector procurement program. I am a member of the Metro Purchasing Committee as well as the Masbo Provincial Procurement Committee. Thank you. Sorry. The procurement process starts with identifying and acquiring a need from an external source, which could be through quotes or a competitive bidding and tender process. Procurement also involves managing any contract resulting from acquiring the need and dealing with any contractual issues with the awarded supplier. Purchasing department is a customer service resource to schools and sites by sourcing competitive pricing from tenders and quotes. Sourcing can include current suppliers, current tenders, as well as the federal Canadian Collaborative Procurement Initiative, Metro Purchasing Group, and buying groups. Purchasing assists school admin to work within their budgets and assisting them with dollar spends in appropriate program or line areas. Another responsibility is to ensure adherence to Sunrise policies and procedures, as well as following provincial and federal regulations to pass an audit as required by Manitoba Education. Adherence ensures fairness and consistency throughout the division and accountability to the taxpayer. The goal is to purchase the highest quality goods and services available for the least amount of money. This allows for additional dollars to flow back into the classroom for quality learning opportunities for the students of Sunrise. In order to achieve this goal, decisions are made to support student learning and fiscal responsibility. We must balance policies, school and student needs, audits, legislation, and cost savings while being accountable to our funders, ratepayers, and parents. The Cole Notes version of this slide is my role is to save the division money. There are a number of functions listed for the purchasing department, both daily and project type and scope. Budget Manager Inquiry, which is also referred to as BMI, is a feature in Power School where principals and secretaries and managers can view all their accounts with live data. This is an excellent tool for admin for planning and budgeting throughout the school year as the data is live. Contract management is ensuring awarded suppliers are following contract terms for pricing as well as specific and general conditions. Should an issue arise, the supplier is contacted to remind them of the terms of the contract. Vendor sourcing is constant and local suppliers are always to be sourced first. Local suppliers can be within the local community, within the province of Manitoba, or within Canada, depending on the good or service being sourced. Purchasing has established some in-house charge accounts within school communities. They include the local co-ops and grocery stores and local lumber yards such as McMahon & Yates. Requisitions are treated similar to a work order. It is entered by a school, reviewed by purchasing for vendor source, pricing, and coding, and flows through routing depending on dollar value and account being expensed. Once a purchase order is generated from the initial rec, it is sent to the vendor for fulfillment. Approximately 150 to 200 purchase orders are generated weekly in the division. The next few slides provide projects and highlights of the 22-23 school year. The fuel tender was awarded in November 2022 for a 3-year period. Through the tendering process, we were able to achieve either status quo or better discounts per litre off posted pump prices. Our snow removal services RFP was awarded in March 2023 for a 5-year period to the lowest compliant bidders. There was an increase in pricing due to several factors, including the last contract duration being 7 years, COVID, and inflation has risen significantly since the last tender award in 2016, which has affected price of equipment purchases, fuel, and labor costs. We have recently extended the grass cutting services contract for the final year pursuant to the contract terms. Our current awarded suppliers have again agreed to hold their rates until March 31st, 2024, based on their year 5 rates contained in their awarded bid. I'm currently working with the ICT director and Jody to obtain best pricing for hardware and install and support services for the Mac Lab at SCI. There are a number of pieces to bring this project together, and we should be able to finalize in the near future for the install to occur over the summer months. The purchasing area in Teams is a resource for users for everything purchasing. It contains information related to procedures, sales promotions, current tender pricing, as well as a chat feature where staff can ask general questions for all users to view. It is constantly being updated and maintained to provide users with the most accurate and current information. An annual purchasing newsletter can also be accessed in this area. It is communicated to all secretaries at the beginning of each school year, highlighting any new processes or procedures, as well as reminders for the upcoming school year. We had a number of new staff as well as current staff changing roles this school year. In the purchasing orientation, staff are trained in the Purchasing Power School module that applies to their specific role, including navigating BMI, online receiving, and requisition entry. In the orientation, we also provide a base foundation for understanding the 5 segments for account codes, budgets, new vendors, travel, which includes field trips, tendered pricing, review of purchasing policies and procedures, as well as accessing purchasing resources and teams. Power School dashboards are live for vendor listings and outstanding open POs. The Outstanding Open PO report is a resource for schools to follow up on any outstanding orders they may have not received from the supplier or have not been invoiced. Schools are also required to keep this list as current as possible for accounting purposes for March 31st and June 30th year ends. As the need arises, purchasing does work with schools on any furniture projects they may be implementing. Over the past couple of years, I have worked with Nicole Dugald and Nicole Boziger early years on library projects that are nearing completion. We work with the principal and some preferred or tendered suppliers to finalize a plan with pricing. Depending on the size of the project and dollars involved, this might be a multi-phase project over 2 to 3 school years. Schools may access PAC fundraising for the project, school fund dollars, operating dollars, as well as some divisional cost sharing. We have recently been working on the inventory of furniture in the old Beausejour bus garage. We have had a team review contents for repurpose as well as disposal. Maintenance is currently removing any items that are deemed by the team to be unsafe for student learning and cannot be redeployed elsewhere. We hope to have that completed by mid-April to allow for a complete furniture inventory database. The inventory will allow us to redeploy furniture for the 2 annual spends, both the rotational and summer, as well as for emergent requests that are made throughout the school year. For the 23-24 school year, we also need to furnish 3 portables and 1 extra classroom. With the province only funding $2,500 per portable for furnishings, we need to redeploy as much inventory as possible to lower the cost of purchasing new. A classroom of 25 students, which is 25 desks and chairs, and a teacher desk and chair will run approximately $8,000 to $10,000 pre-tax for very basic furniture and does not include items such as resource furniture, book displays, informal study seating, collaboration areas, or storage cabinets. In addition to our Sunrise specific tenders, we do access other avenues for product for potential cost savings. I'm an active member of the Metro Purchasing Committee, which consists of the 6 City of Winnipeg school divisions, Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology, as well as Frontier School Division. We are currently the only rural division, with the exception of Frontier, as a sitting member. Some of the major tenders that Sunrise accesses through the Metro Purchasing Group are furniture, art supplies, laminating film, and phys ed supplies. The custodial supplies Metro tender is expiring in the future, and we'll be working with Metro to see if this is a tender that would work for Sunrise maintenance. The Canadian Collaborative Procurement Initiative is a federal initiative partnered with all provincial public organizations, with our contact being through the Procurement Division of the Province of Manitoba. We receive notification of any upcoming tenders that will be advertised by CCPI. They tender for all government sectors, with everything from ATVs, law enforcement vehicles, transit buses and tires, to office supplies and paper. Our paper is purchased from this tender, as do all the Metro divisions. Canoe Procurement Group of Canada is a relatively new membership for Sunrise. It is one of the largest cooperative buying groups in Canada, which originally included municipal associations, but has expanded to all MASH and public sectors. As it is a national buying group, there is a vast array of products and services available to access. It is also a very useful resource for accessing supplier information to obtain quotes and pricing, as well as an alternative to the suppliers in our current database. We have recently reached out to a couple of suppliers through this buying group in relation to the Mac Lab at SCI. A couple of years ago, we moved forward with online shopping platforms for 3 of our preferred office supply vendors, Christie's, Supreme, and Staples Business Advantage. Carts can be entered by any staff member at the school who wishes to provide, entered by any staff member the school wishes to provide login credentials. The staff member's cart is then routed to the school office for approval and the requisition entry process. Amazon Business complements our other online shopping platforms and mirrors that process. We do have parameters around the Amazon Business ordering to adhere to our local purchasing procedure. Tendered items and curricular items are generally not to be purchased through Amazon. All Amazon orders are to be sourced first locally through the community, Manitoba, or Canada before an Amazon purchase is approved. A few years ago, before COVID, we had a committee researching school fund software specifically for parents to pay online for their child's student fees, field trips, and hot dog days. As we are moving out of COVID and activities are now resuming, we are experiencing requests for an online payment system that would encompass not only online payments by parents for those activities, but electronic field trip forms, waivers, and payment for online student store purchases. Jody and I have started the process to discuss a software with suppliers that would encompass all these aspects and integrate with our current financial software, PowerSchool. School credit cards were established for Edward Schreyer and Springfield Collegiate. Process is now running smoothly. With field trips and travel resuming, we are hoping to expand the credit cards to additional schools in Sunrise. We have fully implemented a cashless payment terminal for the vending machines at SCI. This terminal allows users to pay by debit or credit at the machine. Although cash can still be accepted at the vending machine, there is a convenience factor for those who wish to use plastic. We are currently in the implementation stage for Ecole Edward Schreyer School. So I know that was a lot of information. Should you have any questions after tonight, you can feel free to email me.
Thanks, Tracy. So thank you for coming in and sharing that information. Does anybody have any questions for Tracy? Alicia, Trustee Smith.
What's MASH? Sorry, Municipal Academic Schools and Hospitals. So it's kind of the public sector. I had a question for the fees, like online for like school forms and field trips and all that. Will it accept Visa debit too, or just credit? Because a lot of people don't have credit cards. That was, it's probably but we just started investigating it, so we've had one demo, I believe, one demo for it. But yeah, we're hoping that it can encompass like all sorts of payments. So, I mean, we're hoping that the school would still be able to accept cash for the people that don't, the parents that don't want to do the online payment. So there would still be that available, but it would be Visa credit. I don't know if they do the e-transfer thing or how that would work through them.
Thanks. You have to turn your microphone off. Trustee Nickel?
I just want to know with you. I just want to know whether all the staff knew that if you bought a telephone from Bell, I'm not quite sure with Rogers, that you get a discount.
Yeah, it's on our website. So there's some specifics attached to it that a lot of people aren't eligible for it. If you're already bundling with Bell, then you aren't eligible for that, for the EPP plan. But if you just want just the cell phone, yeah, there is a discount. I think it's 25%. And then there's a number of, I think it's 10% off of accessories.
Anyone else? So I have a couple questions for you, Trace. At the start, you said the goal is to save division money. Are we saving money, and how do we know? So don't feel, I ask everybody this question. I ask the question is that if they're doing something, how do we know it's working? So my question is, you said that our goal is about saving money, so I ask principals, if their kids are learning, how do you know they're learning? So the question you said is, the goal is to save money. How do you know we're saving money? And how do we know then that we're saving money?
Well, through the tender process, that comes very clear. For instance, like snow clearing, we knew that there was going to be a slight increase in it, but we had pricing held for 7 years straight. So if it's a tender process, generally you can see when you go to retender, that there's a decrease or they're holding it status quo. So if you're going over a number of years, then you are saving money. The centralized buy is always, with the tender process, is always cost savings, as opposed to each school going out and buying, a pen here, a pack of paper from that supplier. We do jump on all the different tenders that we can. We go through with the buying groups that are all, like the canoe procurement, they're right across Canada. So we know that we're going to get a way better deal through them than we would going out individually. Hard data that we're saving, I mean, again, it's through doing the bulk buys and the centralized purchasing that it's definitely cheaper than going to individually to different suppliers.
So I see our policy about purchasing talks about that under the supervision of the Secretary Treasurer, the purchasing manager coordinates the purchasing of all supplies. So I don't know if it's a question for you or if it's a question for you. So I'm a principal in a school and I want to buy Bic pens. And Tracy says, well, Papermate pens are the ones that are there. I want to buy Bic pens. So can I buy Bic pens? And yep, so that is my question.
So it would depend if it's a tendered item, because that is a contract, right? So if for some reason the manufacturer can't supply us with the Bic pens, then we're available to go buy Papermate. We ran into this recently with paper. There was a fire at the manufacturing plant, and the paper that was tendered through the national tender was with Boise. So they had to provide an alternative for us to be able to, keep photocopying, printing. So we had to use the Grandin toy paper. So that was not a contract. It was just because they couldn't commit to the terms that we had already committed to. So then we were able to use the alternative. Things like if there's certain specs that you need, that it doesn't, a piece of furniture and it doesn't fit in your area, but the spec I have is bigger, then we can go off of tender and buy it from somewhere else.
So my understanding then is we go out and we contract prices, and then we're locked into buying those prices from those dealers, is what you're telling me,
On a tender.
on a tender. So are chairs tendered?
Yes. Task chairs are tendered, student chairs are tendered. If there's a specific, if there's a resource chair that's very specific, that may not be on the tender, then they can provide specs. I can source it out. We don't have to purchase it from that supplier because it's not on tender.
Okay. So, so I'm the principal of a school and I want to buy, I guess my example of red chairs and blue chairs, my cuff. But as a principal of a school then, I can only buy, or as from a staff member, I can only buy what we tender. Is that correct?
If it matches all the exact specs that you need, matches what's on the tender, then we need to commit to that supplier because we have a contract with them. I'll use an example. Let's say, okay, say you need a chair that has 5 legs as opposed to 4, but I've got the 4-legged chair on tender and you need that 5-legged chair for a specific reason. Then we can go out and source from wherever to get that chair. But standard items are generally the ones that are on the tender, like task chairs. We have a variety of task chairs. Student chairs, we have different heights, different makes and models. Desks is the same thing. It's if there's something that doesn't match the exact specs you need, then we are free to go elsewhere.
So do we tender a lot of stuff? Do we tender almost everything?
Yeah, like when Tracy went through the canoe, the CCPI, all those items, all those are pre-tendered, and if we can match the specs to a pre-tendered item, yes. So majority of our stuff that we do purchase on a regular day-to-day, like our desks, our chairs, assembly chairs is another one. Those are tendered. Those are in there. And yeah, we want to hold to our tender because that's where our value is in economies of scale. The more you purchase and buy with other buying groups, like the Metro school divisions, we usually have that beneficial savings from that. And sometimes there are rebates depending on the type of tender and process. But yeah, for the most part, a good, I would say, I don't know a percentage-wise, but majority of our items that we purchase on our day-to-day is tendered items. There's going to be a handful of things where there's specialty items. Vending machines is one that, we don't tender. It's an unusual thing. There's going to be the one-off specific to that school that is not tendered because it's not every day, not every school uses it. So we're going to see our usual day-to-day things when you walk into a school and majority of schools in all of Manitoba will use, that's going to be usually on a tendered list.
Okay, so I also hear from the field that about buying on Amazon, and you talked about Amazon, and maybe the question is directed at you. So let's say there's a teacher that looks and finds something and it's on Amazon and they can get it on Amazon. But I often hear that we can't get it on Amazon, we have to go ahead and get it somewhere else. And now the teacher is going back to search it for somewhere else. How much time do we want our teachers searching for stuff as opposed to about getting it on Amazon?
I think when we go back to the schools and ask them to take a look at their sources of where they're buying it from, we want to also follow the local procurement policy, or procurement procedure. So when we purchase items from Amazon, some of those items are shipped from overseas, from China. You can see in Amazon where their source is coming from. We definitely recognize there's the cost of, you're going to save money but is it worth saving $5 when you're going to spend $20 looking for it? We recognize that as well, but at the same time, we're trying to do our due diligence to make sure we're exhausting our budget and our time as best as we can, most efficiently and effectively. So keeping in mind, we do have the procedure of local purchasing, so we're looking at where nationwide in Canada can we purchase our books from. There is the idea that there's going to be some texts or some documents that we have that our vendors just won't have. It will be found on Amazon. And then we do ask for those schools or those staff to let us know, yes, we looked and it is unavailable at our local sources and only available on Amazon.
Sorry, one last question. Credit cards. So it's probably been about 3 years that 2 or 3 years that we've been piloting credit cards. I'm not so sure why we're piloting credit cards for 2 or 3 years. And when we had credit cards in the past, it wasn't the principals that had difficulty about using the credit cards. So right now, we've had the two, my understanding is we've had the 2 large schools, Edward Schreyer and SCI, with credit cards. Maybe you can bring this at a later date, Jody, as to what's the next step about with our credit cards, because I'm not sure where we are with it. But it seems like it's been a long process, and yeah, I'd love to hear from the field, certainly about our credit card use, and yeah, even feedback about purchasing, because that is one thing that I do hear that is people need to get an awful lot of permission to purchase something. And from a principal from another school division where I worked for 6 years, if I wanted to buy something, I was able to buy it. So I think that, yeah, let's hear it. If we can get some feedback as to what it is. I think that Tracy's doing what we're asking her to go ahead and do. But I do know that our policy certainly around it talks about anything under $5,000, it's department manager, school administration, purchasing manager certainly have that process to go ahead and do anything over than that. It goes to a tender, from what I'm reading as to where we are. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Melissa?
I've heard from some of our schools that they have difficulty with purchasing applications that have monthly subscriptions. Is there a way that we can look into seeing if that's an option in the future?
Are you talking like paper, like magazine subscriptions, or online, like not apps or anything like that, right?
I believe it was an online subscription that the school was talking about when I initially had their conversation.
Yeah, the issue that we've run into, and that rolls into the comment I made about wanting to roll out the credit cards for other schools, is the recurring. It's hard to, for instance, if it's coming to a teacher's Sunrise email and that teacher leaves and nobody really is like aware of that there is this subscription ongoing, and we wouldn't know, because if the teacher just leaves, we wouldn't have an idea that that subscription may not be used anymore. So we don't want to put it on our corporate credit card and just keep having it recurring every month. So that hasn't been a practice, but that's where the school credit card would come in, that they would be able to, because they would know, oh, that teacher isn't there anymore, and I keep having this charge come up on my card. So that would help alleviate, and then that would certainly be able to happen. But right now it's too hard to monitor on a divisional basis the recurring charges.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any comments?
Paul?
Yeah, go ahead, Diane.
Thank you. Hi, Tracy. Sorry, I'm Diane from Dougal. I have not met you formally before, I believe, and I'm sorry I'm not there to meet you today. Thank you for coming. I had a question about the portables. I just wanted to be sure that I heard correctly that you said the province had budgeted $2,500 for furnishing each portable, but that the actual could be 8 to 10 plus additional costs for like storage and accessories. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It actually used to be $1,500, so they've upped their game by $1,000 a portable.
Well, okay. I had a question as well then, further to that. I see in your pictures here, and you talked about going through the inventory at the bus garage, and there is some chairs and there's desks, so you have this inventory. What have you projected for, like, deficiency in furnishing these? Like, we have 2,500, we need 10, maybe more. How much is this furniture and storage going to be able to help us with that, and what's going to be the balance like that we're going to be needing to fill for next budget, and has that been budgeted for?
That's a good question. We're just in the process of emptying out the bus garage right now and determining what exactly is in there. We've also gone back to the principals of the schools that are having the portables in the additional classroom and finding out what, how many students they're expecting, the grade configuration, and those kind of things. Then we're going, once we have that plan, then we are going to go to the inventory, make sure that we're deploying what we can from that bus garage, and then having to purchase. Some of the principals have said they're willing to cost share for certain items, so I can't really give an estimate to the exact cost per school at this point.
But the schools aren't expected to actually carry that cost unless there's something special they would like, right?
For right now, we have a divisional furniture budget that we anticipate will use a large portion out of that, but there will be the specialty items that are kind of unique to what that school or that teacher, that principal may want to see. That's usually where we expect they're going to decide to pay out of their school budget. Then there's the electronic side. We don't have a divisional electronic pot of money. That's usually funded out of the school's budget. So that's where Tracy and Gord will work with the school to determine if they need a projector or a loft or a teacher's computer. So yeah, there is, when we sum it all up, the funds from the province is not enough to cover what we need to furnish that. I think once we understand the big picture or the vision of the principal of how that space is going to be laid out, we're definitely going to try our best to source majority out of our existing inventory, and anything different, we're going to be topping it up with our furniture from our budget, the furniture budget.
Diane, I think the question that you're asking is are the schools that are getting the portables, is it up to them to find money to furnish the portables? And I think that Jody's question is, there is a divisional budget that Jody controls that decides on where furniture gets spent. So there'll obviously be a priority that Jody will have, certainly, about making sure that we furnish those classrooms. I think that in Oakbank and Beauce earliers are fine. Dugald might be a problem, but I think that everywhere else will be okay. I'm just kidding you, Diane. But that's the process, okay?
Yep, thanks. Do we know what happened to the furniture that was in the portables in Dugald before we sent them away? Did that just get incorporated into the new expansion, or are they the ones in the bus garage?
Sorry, I don't know that. I don't know the answer. I'm assuming that it would have just been gone into the classrooms at Dugald.
I think, speaking, Diane, I think that as if schools can hang on to stuff and put into different classrooms, they put into different classrooms. There is, as you noticed, the pictures about surplus stuff that we have. And again, I think that's the inventory that Jody and Tracy are talking about to see what they can use from there to move forward across our division. Anyone else for Tracy? Alicia?
Just a small one. So we have all those extra chairs and all that. Is there a process to sell the stuff we don't need? How does that work? We haven't done that to date. I guess we'll look at it after we have the actual inventory database done. There's a lot of things you've ever been in. I don't know if any of you have ever been in the old Beauce Bus Garage, but it's packed. Like, tables are packed on top of each other, so we have to get all of that off, kind of take a look, can we redeploy it, or is it just unsafe and it's basically, hauled off. But we haven't done anything with selling assets like that off.
Anyone else? Thanks, Tracy. We appreciate you coming out and spending the time with us. And you know what? You're more than welcome to spend the next 3 hours with us. We'll be here for a little while, so thanks for coming. Tracy, thanks very much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. We're going to move on to our next order of business is our minutes. Be it resolved that the board adopt our March 21st board meeting minutes. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Dent, seconded by Trustee Nickel. Any questions to the minutes? Hearing none, we'll vote. Thank you. It passed 9-0. We'll go to Superintendent's report. Kathy?
Thanks very much. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. So we've been talking about the resources that are in place on the Sunrise Learning Framework. So there's a little chart over there, and that's the red section on there. And then jumping up to the top, we've been hearing from schools around their school goal. So if a trustee wants to look at all of the reports to the community and you go into your ESB, you can actually click on the side in the library and they have all of the community reports in one place for you. For our public, you need to go to each school and you'll be able to look at the community reports on their school, and that will talk about each of their school goals and kind of tell you what's gone on throughout the year. So we talked a little bit about, how do we look at what the schools are bringing. Got some really innovative pieces that are coming up. So you have Winnipeg, University of Winnipeg has Enrichment Week coming up. I wanted to give you a sample of some of the session titles because I got to tell you they look really exciting. And students in high school will go for the week. They get to sign up for the courses that they want, or they get to choose the courses that they want. So they pick a high interest subject and they get to go and learn about some of these really cool things. Wanted to thank the 3 schools that gave us a tour last Thursday before the spring break. So I called Powerview, Lac Du Bonte Senior, and Springwell Colony. It was super fantastic to go out and see some of the schools, and we've got 3 more coming up on April the 13th. We also have, as Paul mentioned, Art Speak sessions. So this Thursday, April 6th, 6:30 is some snacks and a chat, and then 7 o'clock is showtime. And weather permitting, my goodness, by Thursday, April 20th, I hope to goodness we're not talking about storms and snow anymore because that would just be ridiculous. And also we'll link to a video if you wanted to look at a little bit of some of the commentary from some of the students. We also have coming up in May the Skills Canada National Competition. So we are taking a number of busloads to go and take a look at people doing trades. If you get a chance to go in and take a look at the Skills Canada competition, it is phenomenal the work that people are doing in our trades across this province. So it's really an amazing display of talent if you get a chance to. Dugald is having a mental health day again in April 19th. They've got a powerful series of activities and different sessions for students and staff to attend. It's been fabulously organized, and I want to give a shout out to them for that. And then you've got a couple of posters for next week for our recruitment fair here, doing a morning session from 9 to noon and then an evening session from 4 to 8. We have some university students who are coming and doing interviews with us at 4 till 8 as well. So we've got people signing up for our recruitment fair in the next week. Pretty fast, but I'm trying to beat the snow.
Questions for Kath? So Kath, thanks for thank you about Powerview, Lac Du Bonte, and Springwell Colony for the trustee tour. I should have mentioned that earlier. Thanks for going ahead and doing that. And I can see that Alicia's looking at me and saying, hey Paul, we ever get a chance, can we go ahead and visit the storage bus garage and see what all the stuff. I can see her looking at me, telling me those kind of things. Yeah, to go ahead and do that. Thanks very much. Any more questions for Kathy? Okay, so we also have the draft reporting schedule. It's there for information, and it's again what stuff comes to us. Thanks, Kath, for continuing to put that together. It is a really good idea as to where we are. Can you put it up? So just a reminder is that all the stuff that Kathy that highlights is the stuff that we've delivered, that she's delivered on, that we've asked her to go ahead and deliver it. And remember, she puts this together for us, but if we want her to change, or if we want her to do something different, we need to add it so that it's there. Okay? Thanks for doing that, Kath. Jody, we have the Secretary Treasurer's report.
I will try and make my conversation short and sweet. I provided the report. Not a whole bunch of stuff has changed from the last time with regards to our maintenance department, but I did want to say that I have certificates of completion for our Lactabani, Powerview, and Whitemouth science labs. So I'm just waiting to confirm that the occupancy permits are completed, and we've been given the green light for students to go in there. So majority of the construction has been completed. We're just watching for deficiencies. So today was the day that I received the certificate. So it's fantastic news. I'm sure the schools are super excited to get in there, and so am I. After seeing a tour of the school at Lactabani Senior, it was really nice to see. And Powerview, it was really nice to see what the space is going to be used for and how modern it's looking. So fantastic. And if anybody has any other questions on the report, feel free to ask.
Questions for Jody? Thanks, Jody, for putting on here about the lift at Hazel Ridge School. It means that Trustee Boyton still doesn't have to go ahead and use that sandwich board that she's been doing, but it's great to see, and then the project getting tendered in late April. We've been there as a group, and so it's good to see and long overdue. So thanks for putting that on. So we'll move on to board business, strategic plan, a reminder. Go ahead, Kath.
I just wanted to bring this up. I'm not sure why the report isn't in here, but Stacy and I will make sure that we correct that. So we had been kind of carrying forward a report, but just a reminder that we do have the work on Thursday, April 27th, between 6 and 8. It's in your calendars. And just to highlight that the board has made this a priority and wants to make sure that they are set with their strategic plan, so we're heading out the gate next year. So we'll make sure that we get that uploaded to here.
And we are moving forward. Since we haven't heard anything from trustees, we're moving forward in the 3 domains. The 3 domains being is that we talked about in the educational domain is literacy and numeracy, the health domain about mental health, and and the 3rd domain being community engagement. A reminder, certainly those are the 3 domains that we've talked about, and that's where we're heading out the door with it. And so thanks. Community cultural engagement, mental health and well-being, and literacy. So those are the 3 domains that we've agreed upon, and that's where we're going to head towards. So we're not going to change those domains. That's where we're going to head. Okay, thanks, Kath. School calendar, yours.
So we have been sitting and waiting and patiently waiting for Lord Selkirk's calendar and for River East Transcona to approve their calendar. So just this past Friday morning, I received the River East Transcona calendar. We wait for those 2 school divisions because we have students who attend those 2 divisions. And for us, in terms of doing busing, it is important to line up as many of the days as we can with our neighboring divisions. So I wanted to include where we sat at this moment in time. So right now you have a calendar that is a draft. It will be shared out with our system, and we will bring it to the next meeting for approval. I think I've gone through before. It's a lot of things that we have to balance, from the evens and the odds and the semesters and the 2 divisions and all of those pieces. But we'll make sure that we have a final calendar as soon as we can.
Can you put up the calendar, Kath? Are there any questions there? Because this will be real important. We will vote on it. We are going back then to the schools. Kathy will go back to the administrators with regard to the calendar, but you have it there. Are there any questions on there? This is a pretty big decision that you go ahead and make. For the most part, it's something that after Kathy's gone and taken it through, we'll go ahead and vote on, but this will be the school calendar. Any questions from anybody on this calendar? Because it is important. Okay. Thanks, Kath. We have our monthly enrollment, so that's there for information, just to let you know kind of where things are. I think that it's always a good thing to keep a glance at it, to take a look at where we are with our schools and if there's fluctuations, those kind of things. Alicia?
I'm just looking, like I know it is like Thanksgiving Day, so that's fine, but we don't normally put like what day we're going to be having like events on, like for example, Remembrance Day, that wouldn't be on it, or yes?
So the Public Schools Act says that schools have to have the Remembrance Day service on November 10th. If November 11th is a school day, if the 10th falls on a weekend, it's the last school day prior to November 11th. So we don't have any room in terms of when those services will be. It's a Public Schools Act piece.
To go back to the calendar, Alicia, I think the biggest thing on the calendar is what we kind of will be, Kathy will ask us to vote on is when our 10 PD days are and administrative days. That is the biggest thing that we'll go ahead and decide. Also, we've also have the flexibility about deciding when our Christmas breaks are, those kind of things. And when she talks about how we try to coordinate with the other school divisions where we run buses and those kind of things together, that's the critical point. As far as all the other stuff that's there, that's pretty well a Kathy, that's a Kathy decision about when we're doing all those things. This thing, though, is something that will come to the board. Anyone else? Okay. Thanks for that. So we've got, with regard to enrollment, thanks Kathy, that's there. We've also got the grade 3 provincial assessment report.
Thank you. So I did a couple of meetings ago share with you the previous one. We finally got our data for grade 3 and 4 from the province. So this is a March report based on assessments from the fall of 2022. The important piece for us in terms of executive summary sits here on page 3. So you want to go to the top of page 3 and say overall our students have mixed results on the 3-4 provincial, but it kind of goes through and then breaks down that in the English program, we assess grade 3 students in the English program for whether they are meeting their reading and their numeracy measures. The two pieces that I wanted to highlight is that we're meeting or exceeding provincial results ahead of the province, and we also have a decrease in the number of students who are requiring ongoing help. So that shift from needing ongoing help into meeting expectations on their own or approaching expectations on their own is a pretty important thing. Grade 3 students in French immersion, we do an assessment on their reading in English in grade 3, and then we do an assessment on their reading in French in grade 4. So they have that extra year to kind of look at that different language piece. It is completely normal for someone learning a second language to have lower results at the 3-4 level. And that gap closes, and that would be something that we could look at if we wanted to kind of look at the pedagogy of French immersion teaching. I don't want to read through everything that's here. I think you've had a chance to look at it, so maybe I'll just ask if there's questions.
So I'll go ahead. Anybody have questions? Go ahead, Don.
This is not a question, it's an observation. I just noticed that looking at the 2018 and 2022, it seems that we are not nearly back to the pre-pandemic, because I'm looking at one here. In 2018 it was a 51% and 2022 68. So in fact we're even above that, and that happens in most cases. So kudos to the teachers that has been able to bring the students back to pre-pandemic assessment value.
I do want to comment that that's an absolutely fantastic point, because we've kind of talked as a group of educators and instructional leaders around this notion of recovery learning, and it is kind of one of those pieces where in Sunrise I think we go, well, that's what we do all the time. We figure out where a kid is at and we go meet them there and we try to bring them forward, and that seems to be how we roll. So this notion of we have to go recover something just seems like regular day-to-day business for us. So I think that's a proud piece.
Anyone else? So Kath, I like this information on like the executive summary, because here's a couple things. When you're talking about our grade 3 students, that they're meeting or exceeding provincial results, part of me says good. So when we can compare ourselves to provincial data and we're doing better than provincial data, it's not that we don't stop doing things, but you know, it's telling me that I'm proud of hearing that kind of information. And when we hear about the grade 4 ones where we're below the provincial results, I'm saying, okay, I don't want to be below, but my question will be, what are we doing about it?
Then here, again, we're doing a couple of pieces. Some of the strengthening student success funding that the province gave us as a one-time piece, we're targeting French immersion, we're targeting, oh my goodness, I've forgotten the other ones, but I know that we're targeting French immersion because we're working with all of our teachers on l'approche intégrée, and it is the teaching of a second language. It's also one of those pieces where we have to say some of the mask use and some of the lack of interactivity has left some of the early years kids a little bit behind on their language development. We've got to go back and get them and make sure that we get that. So one of the things that we're doing is listed right there is making sure that we have all of our teachers teaching in the correct ways to make sure that we're doing that and trying to close that gap. I think a lot of the language experiences and being able to approach language learning from a pluralistic lens is also another piece that we're working with all of our teachers on. But it is a targeted area where we've said this is a piece that we need to look at and focus on because it has been a place that the pandemic has kicked us.
So, great. So what I'm looking for then eventually is, I want you to report back to us is, of the strategies that we're doing, because we're showing that we're below what the provincial results are, and I'm glad that you're bringing brains together and you're working on something. I want to know is what the interventions as to what we're doing, is it working? So I'm always, okay, so we're a little bit behind, so what are we putting in there? Because as a board, our job is, we don't want to hear saying that we're below provincial results. We want to always try to hear that we're above. And if we're below, what are we doing about it? And what kind of resources do we need to put in to make sure that we can try to get always above provincial results? We're not always going to be there. That would be my goal for us trying to get there. So I think that that's great. So part of it is, what are we doing and what are we putting in there to bring that those results the results higher. But this is exactly what I would be looking for in an executive summary, is if it's not working, what are we doing about it? And then let's measure it down the road as to what we're doing, did it work? Fair enough? Anyone else?
Yes.
Go ahead, Diane.
This data is just collected once a year, like this is fall 2022, so we wouldn't get this kind of data again till next March based on fall 2023, is that correct?
Yeah, so the provincial assessments, we do the grade 3 and 4 provincial assessment in the fall. The grade 7 and 8 assessment happens in January, and we're still waiting for those results to come in. And then the grade 12 exams that they're bringing back happen each January and each June. So they are annual assessments in those areas on specific topics, the topics that you see on this report. But yeah, it's once a year. Now we layer that, I think one of the other pieces that I talked about here is we also layer that with some of the other data that we're using. We want to make sure that we're taking a look at this on top of report cards, on top of reading and writing progressions and those kinds of things to make sure that we're seeing the same things. So in-house assessment on top of this.
So that's a good point, Diane.
Layered assessment, yeah.
That's a great point, Diane, but part of it is, at our next report card, Kathy can get a bunch of information with regard to grade 4 students in reading and French from results from our grade 4 report card. And give us an idea as to where we are, certainly with our grade 4 report card data, to telling us, where our kids are, certainly by the reporting. So that's good information. It's not comparing apples to apples there, but it is another source of data for us as to where our kids are. Fair? Okay. Anyone else? Alicia?
I just had a question. Like we have a number of children that have adapted learning plans. How does that work in with all of this?
So with these provincial assessments, they're targeted areas, and if I can try hard to maybe just grab one of them, the student reflects on and sets reading goals. So that would be, data that the teacher is collecting along the way and can kind of put it against a rubric and say this is where they fit, and they would put them into one of these categories. So a teacher would be watching what's happening for the student in the classroom, and they fill that out and send that forward. Some of this here, out of range, might be a student who's on an individual plan. In the light blue might be those who need ongoing help, and that ongoing help might be an adaptation like somebody reading, an adaptation like having a scribe when doing a writing goal, and those kinds of things. So we would see that in here and then layer that on top of progressions or classroom profiles and say, yeah, that makes sense in terms of the number that we're sitting at. Schools get this data broken down for them as well as a school, so they get to look at that on the school level.
Anyone else? So again, Kath, this is great information that, and from my point of view, is to taking it this way, kind of hearing from you as to your opinion as to what it is, as to where we're going, and then if it's not working, what do we need to do about it? So, good. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. So let's move on. Carryover progress report. That's you, Jody.
Great job pronouncing those words there, Paul. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to bring the board up to speed with where we're at with the carryover. So, yeah, about May or June last year, I think it actually exceeds June 7th, we brought a request to the board for specific schools, anything above the 3% or more carryover. So we're looking at Dugald, Powerview, Gillis, Gross, Hazel Ridge, Oakbank Elementary, and Beausejour Early Years. Some of those projects that they're doing have been completed. Hazel Ridge, for the majority of their expenses, they were looking at buying coding kits and for their coding club and applications and subscriptions. What they did find out that some of the subscriptions were actually free, so they are looking at utilizing the full amount, and by the looks of it, they have. I did talk with Gillis, and they did actually plant some trees in the fall, but they still plan to do more tree planting in the spring. It'll be subject to the weather conditions. Last year they couldn't get to it. This year they're hoping if the weather is ideal, they will complete it and spend the rest of their budget. However, if we have a wet spring like we did last year, they will come back and probably request another carryover and try and do the planting in the fall like they did a portion of it this year. Powerview School, they have spent some funds, but they're looking at purchasing canoes. There was an individual that was off on leave, and they were the ones that were going to be tasked with that project. It sounds like I should see the requisition this week come through my queue, so I anticipate the majority of these projects will be complete by June 30th. The only ones that are kind of on the bubble, I would say, is Dugald School. The intention is to do the hard top on the east side of the school. However, depending on the weather and the scale of the project, it might be a larger project to be carried over for future years. It was kind of identified in the report that was brought forward in June. But depending on the portable that they're looking at and the technology they are looking at, they may request to utilize some of that surplus. However, we still have a couple months to go, so we might be able to help them out with those furniture and technology purchases. The other thing is Beausejour Early Years. They are still working with their library project. As you heard from Tracy's report, she is helping them with that. There is a portion of funds that they have spent already. They're hoping to spend it by the end of this year. We do have a spending deadline by April 21st that schools will need to send in their requisitions by April 21st, so we can ensure that all those furniture and goods arrive before June 30th. So the idea is within the next 3 months, we should see either these funds to be committed or a bigger project or a bigger scope of the project be carried over to next year.
Thanks, Jody. Any questions? So with that April 21st deadline, when I took a look at the finance from the finance committee, when I took a look at the finance, we had a lot of schools that weren't close to, that still had a fair bit of budget. So in the next 3 weeks, schools are under the gun to spend money. schools, you're under the gun to spend money about making sure that you get that done, so, yeah. Okay. Question? Oh, Mr. Harris.
So, thanks Jody for this. We're seeing 6 schools on this out of 13. Does that mean the other 7 schools have no carryover, or are they just tardy getting the information to us?
So these were the ones that were approved by the board. Anything else under 3% were just carried over, and there's no real follow-up with that. The idea is they were going to roll it over and just utilize it in their operating. These were approved by the board, though.
Thanks. Anyone else? Thanks for sharing that with us. 8.6. We have a couple of motions here. Be it resolved that the board approve in principle the Springfield Middle School Grade 6 Ukrainian language students to St. Andrews College on University of Manitoba campus, April 26th and 28th, subject to the superintendent's final approval. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Dent, seconded by Trustee Boytson. Any questions to this? Hearing none, we'll vote. It passed 9-0, thank you. 8.7, it has been canceled, so we do not have to go ahead and vote on it. The Springfield Middle School Grade 8 Ukrainian trip. So we'll move on. We have committee reports. Any questions? So, sorry, anybody want to, I see people saying it got canceled. Do you want to, anybody want to address that? We'll come back to you about it. 8.8 Policy Committee Update. So Policy Committee, that's you, Trustee Boytson?
Just to highlight, our next meeting is on April 11th, so no real updates other than we are going to be reviewing the operational bylaw, and we asked all trustees to look it over, and if they have any suggested changes that they'd like us to consider, to send them to me before April the 11th.
Thank you. Any questions for Lorraine? Just so that you know, 8.7, Stacy asked me, should she take it off yesterday? And I said, well, people have seen it on, Thursday or Friday. So I didn't want her to take it off because then people are wondering, hey, where did it go? And so I wanted to leave it on even though that it was canceled, if people wanted to get some information. So Jody did ask me that. I told her to keep it on, have some conversation. Kathy, quickly.
Yeah, so the reason it was canceled, again, our teachers give up their own time to supervise field trips. It's not part of their job. They volunteer to do that. And the teacher who had planned and was planning to supervise the trip is unable to go on the trip. So as much as we love to have everybody go, sometimes it is just not possible to get supervisors.
Thank you. Finance Committee update. So Diane?
Well, further in our agenda, we will be approving some check register, but the only thing to update at this point is that Robin will be the signing authority for March.
So 8.11 is the Policy Committee revised policy. So be it resolved that the Board revised Policy 16 to include a live link in Section 16.1I and to include language requiring the Finance Committee to notify the Board if the operating statements are unavailable or delayed. So it's moved by Trustee Boytson, seconded by Trustee Nicol. Trustee Boytson, did you want to talk to this at all?
No, the motion speaks to itself, and the trustees were provided with the copy before the change and after, so it's pretty straightforward.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. And it passed 9-0, thank you. Finance Committee minutes, they're there. Is there anything that you wanted to highlight there, Trustee Rowan?
No.
Any discussion from the minutes from anybody? Okay. 8.13 is the Finance Committee. Be it resolved that the Board received the February 23, 2023 check register Total amount of checks issued at $4,047,656.67, reviewed on March 22nd by the Finance Committee for information. Submitted by Trustee Rowland. You going to move it, Trustee Rowland?
Sure.
I need a seconder. Trustee Nicol, thank you. Any questions? Okay, we'll vote. And it passed 9-0. Okay. Thank you. Education Foundation Committee. That's you, Jody?
So I brought the board up to speed last meeting, saying that there was additional documentation requested. I've been, let's say, eyeball deep looking at the additional documentation. They're looking at the 5-year history of the foundation before we submit, as well as type of donations and things like that. So I'm preparing an affidavit to compile all this information to bring forward to the Court of King's Bench.
Thank you. Questions? Okay, thanks, Jody. So we have the trustee PD. 3 of you are heading to Fredericton for Capsule. 1 of you are heading to Banff for CSBA. Is there any more to that? Okay, thank you. We have a divisional financial... Go ahead.
Sorry, I was wondering if Jody could speak more to some of the comments I think she was referring to with our budget for PD. There's implications for next year's budget?
Yeah, so I've been asked to provide a report to kind of break down the difference between, I think, the professional development and the conferences and conventions budget line. Both areas are, and in the report it identifies the categories. Both areas are budgeted at $15,000 apiece. Then we were looking at how do we apply these budgets and the allocation of the budgets. We've had it in the past that there have been funds allocated per trustee for usually the conventions, but the professional development that comes forward in this area under our agendas is usually a basket of money. And I know sometimes it has changed over the years depending on, I guess, the decision of the board. But the professional development where the conferences are more of a national conference, then the board decides where they're going and how to allocate those funds. $15,000 usually earmarked for 3 trustees to go somewhere is usually the rule of thumb when it came to the budget. So looking at what we've spent so far, looking at our professional development in the last conferences we've agreed to send our folks to, we're looking at a balance of estimated cost, about $10,000, with a balance remaining in the budget about $4,000. Then we have our conventions, which would be our MSBA convention. Right now we have a budget of $15,000 with all the convention, hotel, registrations, things like that. We've seen a total just under $13,000 spent, so we have about $2,000 left. When it came to the 22-23 budget year, it was noted after the election computers were going to be purchased, but there was not sufficient money in the budget for that. It was discussed that part of the PD budget would help offset that. So in the report, it identifies where the sources of funds will be coming from to help fund those computers, but in the report also identifies we haven't spent the full budget amount, but what our past and current practices are on spending for PD.
Any questions for Jody?
One question.
Go ahead, Diane.
Like the CSBA convention in July, which we currently have 1 trustee attending, is that expense is being put towards the 23-24 budget and not this year's?
Yeah, that's correct. So any expenses that incur for a function in the new budget year effective July 1st is captured in the future budget. So the one that's taking place in July, it'll be the 23-24.
And you've projected 4598 for that one, for the one trustee to go, or that was just in general? Because I have to say I was considering attending that one, but I missed the voting on that last meeting, and I thought there's still lots of time. But
So, Diane, if you're interested, trustees can, throughout the year, go ahead and put a motion in to go to professional development. It then does get voted on by trustees. I think that Jody gave us a real clear picture here, certainly about where dollars and cents are. But is anybody late about doing things? No. I think that the only issue about late is as you get closer and closer, if you're flying, it costs more money. But no, I don't think that what did I say? Oh. So I don't think that you're late as in that you cannot do it. If trustees want to still attend one of these things, you saw where budget lines are. It's up to trustees then to go ahead and vote as we move forward.
yeah, I wanted clarification that I thought that expenditures would be applied to this year, but it's already next year's budget that conference would be charged to, which is already a significant hit in the development budget there.
Yes.
Okay, I will consider that further. Thank you for clarifying.
Trustee Boyton.
I would just say that if you're thinking of going, I spent a day and a half trying to find a hotel room because it's right around the time of the Calgary Stampede, and it was crazy. And I don't know, I phoned every single hotel. I did finally get one online that they said they didn't have any, so I'm hoping I will have a room when I get there. But if you're thinking of going, I would suggest you start looking now.
Thank you, and good luck with that one, Lorraine.
Trustee Rowan, Trustee Dent said, Trustee Harris said that he has tents. So if you want to certainly go, he would probably lend you his tent to go ahead there. Yeah.
Or the beautiful hotel in Banff does have rooms for, I think they're between 7 and 13,000 a night.
All right, thanks very much, certainly for that. So that's information with PD, Trustee PD. We have a divisional summary report, a financial summary report. It's there for information. Jody, anything that you wanted to talk to us about?
Yeah, I'd like to just speak to the board about the divisional summary report. As we get closer to our year end, our projected surplus has been swinging back and forth, and I think it's important to identify it is a struggle, and I've been working here for about a year. It is a struggle to work with the schools to ensure that they're accurately submitting the requisitions for purchases and that they are not leaving their last minute purchases for the months of April, May, and June. It has been reminded, but I do see that as past practice, it's continuing. So I think in order to budget accordingly, ensuring that the schools are reflecting their expenses accordingly and getting those expense claims in on time definitely helps with projections. A couple things that did take place over the last little while was recognizing the additional funds that the province did commit in the last month of March. They identified and they assigned, they call it an adjustment redistribution amount of $759,000. This amount does exceed what our anticipated funds from the province was earmarked for. We budgeted for a certain amount, and this exceeds what we are getting. The rationale behind it was to support school divisions on inflationary costs, as well as the equalization adjustment that took place, as well as recognizing higher inflation costs, growing enrollment, but they didn't really attach any specific spending requirements associated. So that does contribute to our surplus. We do anticipate a bit of a surplus at the end of the year as we build in inflationary costs for contract negotiations or contract settlements, wages and benefits. Of course, in the budget year of 22-23, we haven't settled that. So the idea idea is whatever we do have in a surplus, is anticipated, it will be allocated for future years when it comes to retro pay. So when it does come down to the year end and where we're sitting at, the idea is we should be sitting in a bit of a surplus. The prior month's report did identify a small deficit of about 30,000, and that we're seeing from our interest costs and our line of credit costs. We do see that the interest rate has stabilized. It did not go up in the last month as reported, so that is kind of a relief to the school division, but at the same time it's still a lot of volatility out there.
So just, I just want to clarify, and just so that, because the public are listening, is that in the middle of March, the province turned around to us and gave us $759,000 more dollars to be spent this year, and there's not a lot of criteria on it. They just liked Jody and they wanted to get $759,000. Thanks, Jody. I'm being facetious, but basically they did give us in the middle of March $759,000 more dollars. Thank you. Anyone else? Thanks, Jody, for providing this. Let's move on. We have board correspondence 11.0. We have nice to know information. There's 3 articles that are in there. Great to see stuff about Whitemouth School and Lactabonny School and Parview School, certainly with the 3 articles. We have upcoming board meetings that are there. So again, the press release went out with regard to the superintendent retirement. It's there as well. Is this the first time that we're talking publicly about that? Yeah? Right. Comes out in the paper tomorrow. So do you know what? I did get just so that you know, I did get a call from the paper about the retirement. Kathy did pay me a lot of money to say some really nice things about her. No, I'm just kidding, Kath. Thank you for Kath, for certainly giving us the notice for us to be able to go ahead and put a succession plan together. The information certainly is out there. And yeah, so there is an article that's coming out in the paper that about Kathy and the retirement and the great work that you've been doing. So thanks, Kath. No, I'm good. Okay, so we do need to move into in-camera. Before we move into in-camera, we have questions from the public. Jody, are there any questions from the public?
No, nothing came up through.
Kathy, is there any question that you would like to go ahead and ask us? So Kath, we should probably have an answer later tonight about that. And the question certainly is that you've asked about having Nello come out and present to us, and then having a little question and answer. So that is something that we will probably in an hour have a decision. But I did share briefly with the board certainly that you've offered that, and we're in conversation about it. Yeah. You too. Okay, so we're going to go into in-camera, so let's take a 2-3 minute break, and then we'll come back. Okay, Diane?
Do you want to come to log into mine?
All right, so we have two motions from in camera. First motion is, be it resolved that the board deny the personal appeal as presented and discussed at the in-camera meeting. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by trustee Rowan, seconded by trustee Smith. Any discussions on the motion? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. All right, so it passed 9-0. Thank you for doing that. Thanks, Alicia. And we have another motion. Be it resolved that the board approve the request to have Nello Altomer attend to present to the board following the operational bylaw. Whoops. Following the operational bylaw. Following the operational bylaw 374-21, section 5, delegation requests. Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by trustee Boytson, seconded by trustee Dent. Any questions on this? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. And it passed 8-1. Thank you. So I think that we're adjourned here. Correct? We're adjourned? All right. Thank you very much for being here. Safe travels, everybody, certainly for going home. Good night. Good night, Diane.
Night, thank you. Bye-bye.